Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Okay. Good morning. We have now passed 3 months of physical distancing, and this method of restricting the spread of this virus is working. Congratulations. San Diego continues to have a relatively low number of infections and deaths. However, opening of businesses recently in restaurants and parks, there seems to be a slow increase in the number of infections. Since San Diego is a tourist city, we attract many people from other parts, especially Arizona, which is having a very high spike in the infection rate. There's still no treatment, no cure, no medicine, and so we must be careful. And the things that are working are social distancing, wearing a face mask, and washing our hands frequently. These things work, but we must stay vigilant and be patient. Bishop Harada spoke about patience, the third paramita, in one of his video talks. And it's wonderful to have a religion that has practical ways of dealing with difficult issues of life. We may not like what's happening. We may not like what we have to do. But that may mean we don't like the way the world works. Rather than monku and complain, we could look at many sides and see the things that benefit us. Buddhism teaches us to see our minds develop and to see reality as it is. There are many sides to reality. What we can complain about and also what benefits us. And there we can see what we can do for the betterment of others. For example, we have had to cancel all our fundraisers this year. However, the temple sent out a letter recently requesting donations. And I want to thank all the members and friends for their generous donations to the temple. It's been gratifying that we are supported during this time when most of our activities at the temple are closed. However, various committees are still at work. We have a lot of Zoom meetings, and we're thinking of ways to share the Dharma, thinking of ways that our members can help our members, and think of innovative ways of fundraising. And if these Dharma talks are helpful, we welcome any donation. Every day we are in a recurrent situation like the movie Groundhog Day. It starts out with Bill Murray being kind of an egocentric guy. But as every day repeats itself, he appreciates his coworkers and he becomes more thoughtful of others. It's like marinating chicken teriyaki. Shin Buddhism begins to marinate our minds. And so we become more thoughtful of others. So in this time of isolation, we have time to think about others and think about what they have done for us. We can also think about what we have done for them, and perhaps more importantly, the troubles we have caused others. This is Nikon therapy, or Jodo Shinshu psychotherapy, and it's a gentle way of seeing reality as it is. This is also a growth process as we grow from childhood to adulthood. As we do that, parts of us get stuck, and especially as young teenagers, we hang on to a process that we had as teenagers. And this will be a topic of my talk for the BCA Center for Buddhist Education in a couple of weeks. The point I want to make here is that for most of us, we have parts of us that are stuck. And it gets triggered, especially when we are stressed or challenged. And we can see this dynamic if we recall how we were as teenagers, or as parents, if we've had teenagers, recall how that was. How did we respond when our adult parents told us to do something that was good for us but we didn't like? Rather than take this good advice, what did we do? We acted out. We ignored them, we denied reality, we challenged, we lied, we had opinions that weren't backed by any supportive evidence, or we got violent. So as adults, we have had to wait, be patient for them to mature. So with love and compassion, we hope that they mature and grow out of this stage. So let's see how this fits into this COVID-19 pandemic. The adults are the medical professionals, doctors, researchers, epidemiologists. They have studied this virus, diseases, and pandemics for years. The rest of us are teenagers in our knowledge of this. Do we follow the advice of these adults, or do we follow other non-professionals in going out to eat and play? The problem is, if we follow our teenage minds and are careless, we can bring this virus home and affect our families and others. Now, in the middle of this pandemic, we have an event that is so significant that it exposes a long-standing virus that has affected our society for over 400 years. The video of the killing of George Floyd is so blatant that it wakes us up to a reality that has existed but has been ignored. Like the Me Too movement of women being abused, the Black Lives Matter exposes a reality that has remained hidden. The unequal treatment of blacks by police and others has been ongoing for decades and for centuries. We begin to see how common this is and the dangerous tension that exists between black men and the police. So how do we as Buddhists respond? This, like many things, shows us a situation of duality. And this is not just a choice between two options. Duality means that there are many sides and many levels. The issue is deep and complex, and let's not act like teenagers and just pick one side. Black Lives Matter deals with police brutality, but points to a deeper issue of institutional inequities in our society, which includes the justice system. Tens of thousands of people, mostly non-blacks, have been protesting throughout the United States and other countries for almost 3 weeks. This national and worldwide protest validates the truth of these inequities. The temple and its members have also been victims of this unjust social and institutional system, and we still are. Some members of our BCA temples have been harassed and accused of being Chinese, bringing in the virus from China. Most people of color have experienced this prejudice. Of course, the most prominent injustice is the incarceration of 120,000 Japanese Americans during World War II. I don't want to take the emphasis away from the Black Lives Matter, but the focus is on police brutality. But this issue is deep and complex and touches all of us. As Buddhists, we can bring wisdom and compassion to help into the resolution of this huge issue. For the past 3.5 years, this administration, part of the Congress and One Network, has brought confusion and division to many issues that we face. They have taken action and lied about the intention. The present protests of tens of thousands of peaceful people supporting the Black Lives Matter movement are not radicals who are just looting. This administration has consistent tactics of creating confusion with unfounded lies. Observe the tactics being used. They resemble the actions of a teenager. They respond with lies, ferment confusion and division, and don't take responsibility for their actions. As Buddhists, we might bring truth to the situation. When there's obvious hatred, greed, and ignorance, it calls for wisdom and compassion. Some may say that the temple should not be involved with politics. This is a distraction to mislabel something to legitimize it. We have seen this before. As Japanese Americans were taken from their homes, farms, and businesses, it was said that this was done because we were a military threat. The real cause was racial prejudice and financial gain. It was mislabeled. To say that our involvement is political is another misleading tactic of misnaming and confusion. We can put any label on any situation. What is the COVID-19 pandemic? Is it a health, financial, political, or religious issue? These names are not separate. All are involved. Of course, health is the issue in this situation that's most basic and paramount. The Black Lives Matter movement, is it social, political, economic, or religious? All of these issues are religious because they involve us humans. Years ago when I was in Mendocino on vacation, I was talking with the shop owner. He said that they used to live in Berkeley, but they moved to Mendocino because he felt that things were in Berkeley were too political, and you probably know what that is. But what he told me was that in a small town, everything is political. Street signs, parking, where the sewer lines go, taxes, schools. All decisions have to be made by citizens, and you see it much more in a small town, where in a large city it might be not noticed. So politics is an integral part of our lives. Religion is in all parts of our life. Buddhism is not confined to the temple. The guidance of the Buddha is how we discern truth. The solution of Black Lives Matter is how we discern and depend on wisdom. The guidance of the Buddha is how we discern truth. The solutions of Black Lives Matter movement depend on wisdom, which notes that progress is incremental and needs the support of all citizens, not just the police. Compassion is needed by having us feel the feelings of black men whenever they might encounter the police. And it also involves the feelings of the police. As a minister, I feel it is my responsibility to highlight a spiritual perspective on these events. It is a distraction to label it political or anything else. It is up to adults with experience to support truth. We often hear the statement, I hope the adults in the room can work on this and get a solution. We need discussion. We need to hear from people, many experiences. What is true for one set of people may not be true for another group. Hearing the experience of others. On TV, we heard the experience of many black men and how frustrating it is for them to live their lives simply when they feel threatened just by seeing a police car. So we do need long, in-depth process. With talk and discussion, we also need action. We do need to change laws and rules and behavior, and change takes time. In the 1960s, living in the Bay Area in Berkeley and San Francisco, we thought we were changing the world. And many things have changed, and yet there's still a long way to go. So a good way to think about this is that if we see hatred, greed, and ignorance, it's characteristic of teenage behavior. It's immature. If we confront a teenager, we get what? Resistance, anger, violence, lies, denial. It's like a parent trying to educate a teenager of the dangers of shallow, immature thinking. We must get adults to be compassionate, to see the fear in the teenager, to understand their response, but implement rules that can be followed. To do that on a national level, we need to vote, and we need to vote for adults. So let us see the teenager in us. Let us see the adult in us. The issues are complex. We take wisdom and compassion to help toward wholesome thoughts, speech, conduct, and perspective. And the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu, is our guide. So please join me in responding with the Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida.